to Legend TV. And today's phenomenal guest is not only a colleague and peer, but she's actually a friend, and I'm her client. So I cannot wait to bring Dr. Anne Whitehouse to the house. Morning, Anne, welcome.
Morning. Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Melanie.
Now, I'm going to make an extraordinary claim on Anne's behalf, and then we're going to find out the truth of that. In that, basically, all of those things that we feel, the imposter syndrome, the lack of confidence, the anxiety that most of us are facing, that inability to speak up for ourselves in that boardroom or in the meetings and things like that, that is actually a sign of how far we have come. I know,
That's
right? So
very
Anne,
true.
over to you. How did tell me where you come from? What on earth do you do? Where did it start? I don't know where to start with you. Just jump in and tell me what to do here.
Okay, well, it is a quite involved story, as you know, but let's just say that I started out as a high-flying academic, Cambridge PhD, postdoc, prizes, and then I got a lectureship, which in the US you would call a college professorship in an engineering department. And off I went with my high ideals to be a role model to other women, to prove myself. And I was so motivated, highly qualified, and I went really enthusiastically into this male-dominated world. And then I got there, and this is the thing: women, we've been given a promise that we can achieve what we want now if we just, go for it. But that is actually a lie. It's a lie, right? And what I found when I got there was that it felt subtly as if the rug was being pulled out from under me. I'd started off confident, competent, motivated, but I felt my confidence draining away and my anxiety getting more, my stress getting more. When you go into a job, you normally find you start out a bit nervous and then over time you get more confident. It was the other way around. The longer I was there, the more the anxiety ramped up. And I didn't know what it was. This is the thing. I did not know. And of course, there were some really key experiences, which I'm sure many other women will have shared with me. One in particular. Would you like me to go into that now? Or
Yes,
shall I save it for later?
absolutely. No, no,
Right.
no. Because this is the point you make, isn't it? We think nowadays we've got equality, we've got
Yeah.
access to education, we can have everything we want. And then, yes, tell us the story.
Okay. So my confidence had been draining away for some time and I really didn't know why. And I was blaming myself, as women tend to do. There's something wrong with me. I can't hack it. I'm not good enough. Must push harder. Must try harder. Anyway, so I'd been invited to a well-known engineering company to do some work together, some experiments. And I'd gone to present our proposals for this work. And I arrived with my technician, who was a man. And the front desk, there's a female receptionist who was the only the only woman I saw while I was there. We then go into the meeting room, and I'm standing up at the overhead projector because this is the days before PowerPoint, before laptops. I had transparencies and a pen, and I was there presenting what we were going to do. Now I was very good at this stuff. I'd given scientific talks at the Royal Society. I'd
You have a
spoken to
PhD.
I have a PhD in metallurgy, right? And I had given lectures to hundreds of students. And there I was in that room with about 12 men. And I'm busy talking about the science. And then suddenly one of them starts asking a question to my technician, and they engage in conversation. And then they just keep on talking, and the other men join in. And I'm stood there like a lemon, right? In front of everybody, but they are completely ignoring me. It's as if I was absolutely invisible. And I have to say, this was, I should say, one of the most humiliating experiences of my entire life. I actually stood there for an hour and a half watching the clock on the wall, being
Yes.
unable to do anything about it. And this is a really important point. At the time, I was just destroyed by how they treated me, the lead scientist. Something in their makeup had literally said, oh, she's unimportant. She doesn't matter. We're the men. we matter. But more than that, when I stood there, I could not open my mouth. I could not say anything. I couldn't say, excuse me, do you mind? Would you please wait till afterwards for the questions? Something was stopping me. And I didn't understand at the time, but now I know exactly what was happening. And you can imagine the amount of self-recrimination I took in after that terrible experience. And so it was so awful. Even thinking about it now, and it's like 23 years ago, I think, now, and I still feel queasy about it. It was so awful. But the thing is that what happened to me on the subtle level in that room is something that happens to women over and over again in many different guises. And it was investigating that and finding why I couldn't open my mouth. What was happening? What was my subconscious thinking that opened up a whole new world? And it explains what is really holding women back and what is undermining high achieving women when they get out in the world.
Well, this was like a big aha for me when we were talking. So, hold your horses. But this happens to women everywhere, and it doesn't matter how much of a warrior they are. And you know that I consider myself out there, and I'm tough, and I can do it, and I still get to lots of levels, lots of times, and I then come to you and say, "Anne, I'm here again." But if you imagine that it happens to those of us who are strong, who have got those PhDs, who've got all of that, imagine what the effect is on all the consciousness of the women everywhere, women in different cultures, etc. Because we're very privileged women. We live in a world which does allow us to have education. It's almost considered an obvious thing you're going to have. We have allowed to work. We're all sorts of things where equality is given to us. That's not true for everyone all over the world. Mm-hmm. So when you told me what you're about to explain now, I was like, oh, duh, oh my God, of course. So
right.
Tell us.
Okay, so here we have the thing. We have the conscious world. We have our three-dimensional world with our equal opportunities policies, our law, with this lie of you can do whatever you like, you just have to try hard and put the effort in. And on that level, there shouldn't be anything wrong. But when I looked back at what happened to me, it didn't add up. It's like an equation, you see. So normal life resulted in me not feeling good enough and this huge stress response. And we haven't even got into what actually happened to me after that, have we? We'll get to that in a minute. It just did not add up. There's a hidden factor. The world says everything is fine. But what I discovered was that under the surface, there's a whole layer. It's like the subconscious operating system is what I call it. When this stress scenario that I went into in my lectureship, here's the thing. Probably I should bring in now that it's so important to understand this, as soon as possible and to take action as soon as possible, because it doesn't get better; it gets worse. If you imagine our subconscious minds are running software that's deeply rooted in the past. So for women, that means the software that we're running is literally saying your place is in the home. You aren't allowed to have higher education. You're not allowed to have these men's jobs. You are not allowed to achieve. You're certainly not allowed to be an authority.
Not allowed to own property. Not allowed to make a decision.
Not allowed to earn lots of money. No, all of these things. And this is, and basically what happens is that when we then go into our work situations, we are living our life, pushing harder. The subconscious is telling a different story. It's saying, Anne, you shouldn't be here. What you're doing is forbidden. You're going to be burned at the stake, because that's what happens to powerful women. You're going to be punished. You're going to be put to death. It sounds ridiculous, I know,
Yeah.
but
But
I
we're all living in
began
the
to,
present, and our memory, our DNA is generational.
right,
So the software running us is 4 and 5 generations, even more sometimes. And yet we're only aware that we're here in the 21st century going, hey, how come it's so hard?
exactly. So our subconscious is looking at our world, but it's using the wrong benchmark. Okay, it's the wrong benchmark. What we see in the world is full of male defaults. It's a world that was built for men by men to suit men. You know, their definitions, their way of doing things. No judgment. We've inherited it. Nobody's fault. We just need to understand it. So my subconscious, when looked at that, you know, the programs that were running amongst my colleagues in that engineering department, and it all says, Anne, you shouldn't be here. You're not male. You don't do things that way. You're not allowed to be shining in this environment. So that's that hidden layer, that subconscious layer, that operating system is saying, no, you're forbidden. You're in danger, right? And that this is the key. But then we need to go even beneath that, because underneath that we have like a mechanism. The subconscious says, you need to get out of this. You are in extreme danger. It triggers a deep fight or flight, which is basically when it's literally giving the power away and we're going into submission, subconscious submission. And let me make this really, really important point here. We are not submissive women. Not at all. That is our whole problem. Because we are pushing forwards. If we were submissive women, we wouldn't be having any problems because we'd all just be, you know, aligned with staying at home, right? But this operating system is saying, no, you can't. Consciously, we're saying, yes, I can. And I actually have a little demonstration for you, if you'd like that. Okay, so the subconscious mind does not update. It just does not. It's running its programs, it's looking at history, it's looking at, and it's making a knee-jerk snap decision and saying, you can be here or you can't. And for any woman out in the world, it's saying no, 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 no. So it's here with its beliefs, right? And here's me. This is me. Say this is me at school. I'm doing okay. Then go to university. I'm kind of on the limit. And then PhD. That's not allowed. And then I'm in lectureship. And then I'm speaking to all these men. And then I'm in authority. And then I'm going up in rank, you know, and up the hierarchy. You can see what's happening. This is staying where it is. This is stretching and stretching and stretching. And I can even see that it's about to break because I'm going to put it back in. This is what happens to us, to modern women, right? The subconscious is stuck in one place. We are going and going and going. So the further we go, the more we are stretched, the more strain goes into the system, if you want to talk engineering. And you don't need to be an engineer to know that something is going to break, right?
Something's going to snap.
So our benchmark, our operating system is just all wrong. It doesn't equip us for succeeding in the world. And the longer we try to put up with it, push through it, the worse it's going to get. That's why all my stress got worse and worse. It went from feeling not confident to then I was so stressed I would stop sleeping for literally weeks at a time. I'd be signed off by the GP, put on tranquilizers to knock me unconscious. It really was that bad. And what would I do? I would just go straight back to work again because I was on the conveyor belt of I'm not going to be beaten by this, right? Because I so desperately wanted to achieve and to be the role model to the other women, and all of that was so important. So I just kept going back. But then it came to the point where my body said, no, you are not going to set foot in that place one more day. And so my health broke down. I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome, spectacular burnout. It took me 10 years to get my health back. And that's because I didn't understand what was happening. And of course, there wasn't a solution then. But I've spent 20 years working out what that solution is. And the thing that's so important to understand is that if it were just me, it's just me, and it's just one person's reaction. But when I started identifying exactly what was happening on that subconscious level, I found it was in me, and it was in the other women who were coming to me for help, and it was in the men. The subconscious operating system is everywhere. And the same pattern of high achieving women getting so far and then the rug being pulled out from under them, that is, I've seen it again and again and again, you know, with women who work in law, in medicine, in politics, in finance, in industry, you know,
well, everywhere.
every time we are pulling away, everywhere, wherever women are pulling away from the traditional roles, this pattern of this high stress is occurring. And like you said, Melanie, it's not just the women who are maybe a bit reticent or a bit shy or a bit reserved, as I am naturally. It's the warriors like you as well. You know, you get to a certain point. In fact, I was talking to a woman who is in fact a chief executive the other day, and I made the assumption, oh, she hasn't got a problem, she's completely empowered, you know, because she's had to be to get where she is. And she said, no, in the board meeting, there she is, you know, chairing the board meeting. And she still said the men, they talk over her, they interrupt her. And you know, she'll say something and then another man will chime in 5 minutes later and say what she said and make out it was his idea. And there are these key moments where this programming undermines us in a big, big way. And this is what I call the beast, the subconscious beast that is undermining and indeed pulling us apart, because it's doing this, it's breaking us in half, it's doing this, and it's affecting every single woman in one way or another. You know, it depends on your character, on your circumstances, but it is affecting us all. So
most of us,
back to your point, the more we feel that stress, that anxiety, that I can't speak up, it's because we've gone so far from this. And this is anchoring us. This is like locking us into that patriarchal past without us realizing it. So to get from here to here is a lot of hard work, because we are getting those negative messages every single day, every time we go into work, every time we want to go up or do something more exposed, expand our impact, earn more money. Every time we expand in that way, we're getting more negative messages saying, no, you can't, you're in danger, you're going to be executed. And so we have to cope with all of that, as well as doing the three-dimensional world stuff. So that's why the more you feel those things, the more amazing you actually are.
You once told me a metaphor about fish that illustrates this really simply.
Yes, absolutely. So what we have is, as I said earlier, that the world is what was designed for men by men to suit men. And you can imagine that the world, this is the world external to the domestic environment, is like the sea. It's full of salt water. The saltwater fish are happy in their environment. The women haven't been allowed there for, centuries, forever. We've been kept in the river, the home, the freshwater environment. Now, we come to the 20th century and things begin to open up. We begin to get more opportunity, more education, etc. We are allowed out into the sea. So we get there. But what happens? Suddenly, the freshwater fish is in an environment which is salty. And it's, oh my God, this wasn't designed for me. It doesn't feel right. I can't breathe here. I don't know what the word you use for a fish is. I can't breathe here. And either we adapt and squeeze ourselves in to try and fit into what's there, or we die. We get crushed. This is what's happening to women. But, and this is the key point, let's put ourselves in the position of the men, the saltwater fish. They just see another fish in the sea and they say, what's the problem? What's the big deal? You've got plenty of water, you've got the freedom, I can't see what your problem is. And meanwhile, we're going, can't breathe, right? But
yeah, that really worked for me. And the other story that I'm now just remembering is how you kind of pinpointed that perfect was man. You were studying art, which as a scientist.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yes, well, at school, one of the things I did as well as the science was art history, because, well, I just loved it. And my particular speciality was the Italian Renaissance. And I had this wonderful art teacher, Miss Date, Oh yeah, still such fond memories of her. And I'd be up there in this old building in the attic in the art department. Again, an old slide projector, me feeding the slides in to look at the masters on the wall, you know, and we have been analysing all this golden section stuff and the proportion and perspective. And it wasn't until this one particular day, and we were looking, in fact, it was Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. And I realised that all the images we were being shown of perfection were male. It was always the male body. If you look at, well, Leonardo, look at Michelangelo, and it's like, and if you when I realised that, if you look back to the classical world, you know, the Greeks, the Romans, perfection is male, right?
And so it's not even possible for us.
Exactly. So what you see that, yes, there are female characters on the sideline, but it will be the sexual object or the mother or the victim, right? That's pretty much it. But all the main stuff, the center stage is for the male. And of course that leads into all of this stuff around religion. You know, you've got the Sistine Chapel, and you've got that very famous fresco of God giving life to Adam. And in actual fact, it says way more than that, because what it says is, it says God is male, God is giving life to man, male. So excuse me, don't we need female in this equation?
Well, we do the birth bit here down on the Earth's surface, yes.
So we, on that level, it's, well, you know, that's the world it was. But there's a deeper message, and this is the thing. These subliminal messages go into women all the time, and that's what people don't understand. So what that says is, it says male is perfection, male is God, male is what we aspire to, female is inferior, the female body is inferior, the female body is unclean. We are less than, we are less close to God or spirit, or however you want to put it, you know, in your belief system. And it automatically puts us in this hierarchy below the male. And you know, even then, when I was 18, and I remember thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I felt this. I can never be that. No matter how hard I try, I cannot be that because I'm female. And this is very, very key. So because we don't, one of the big challenges is that we don't know any of this consciously. I mean, if you've read my book, you will know about this consciously, but until you have done, you won't. You will feel what your subconscious is telling you, and your subconscious is saying you're not good enough because you're not ticking the boxes in the world benchmark. You're not living up to the standard that's being set in front of you. And that standard is male, is perfection. So this is the thing that really undermines high achieving women, right? So we are there, and our subconscious sees the benchmark. You've got to be male, Anne. You've got to behave like that. You've got to be confrontational. You've got to be, you know, have a loud booming voice. You've got to do X, Y, and Z to do it the male way. I'm not doing it that way. I've got my soft, more reserved, more sensitive, more caring female way of doing it, which is absolutely just as good, but different. My subconscious says, that's not good enough, Anne, because you don't tick the right boxes. I don't know it's saying that. I just feel not good enough, right? I feel not good enough. So I try harder. Still not good enough, still not male, try harder. Still not good enough. So this is this ramping up stress, imposter syndrome, not good enough, no confidence thing, right?
Well, the interesting thing about this is that we know about it, but that's not enough. We need to fix it. And I'm gonna be your case study. So which one of the million stories shall I tell? But so very specifically, this is an instant measurable one. This is one where we can have a tangible KPI, like some kind of measure of success outside of our control. I was going to speak at a stage in Los Angeles. Well, I did speak at the stage in Los Angeles, so there we go, in March. But I hadn't had any confirmation. I wasn't getting any response from the organizer, whatever was going on. And I came to you. We looked at my patterning. When I say we, you did.
I did.
You did that thing. And we found this fear of visibility, this thing about, despite my conscious brain being completely capable of standing on a stage and speaking to crowds of people, despite the fact I'd done a national inspirational speaking tour, for goodness sakes, this was a different stage, different audience, different level. But I was still running a program that said only whores get on the stage. And I was running another program of, in the spotlight, you're either a whore or you are, I was just forbidden, but I specifically remember only whores get up on the stage. Because
Very
that's
common.
Really common. And you did some work, a little bit of that stuff. And I emailed you 2 hours later and said, confirmation has come through. Not only that, I've been offered the Saturday, and I'm in Las Vegas on the Saturday. I'm really just name dropping here. I'm in Las Vegas on the Saturday and can't do it, so I've asked to move it to the Sunday where it shouldn't be possible, and it's been agreed. And I'm going to close out the whole ceremony on the Sunday. So that is, first of all, an evidence that patterning runs that you can't see and don't know about. Secondly, that it has immeasurable effects in the real world. And thirdly, that quickly.
Right.
So that's the next point, really, isn't it? It's not enough for us to know that this is going on, because that doesn't fix it.
Right. Doesn't fix it, because just knowing about it, that conflict is still there, because the subconscious is still there, stuck. How they say, back to the band, it's still here, locked in some kind of approximately 19th century belief system. So what we need to do is have a way of freeing ourselves from this. So ideally, I'd like to wave my magic wand and change the world. Right? But that's not going to happen anytime soon. I believe it will happen eventually. We're not there yet. What we need is a system whereby women can go into those situations, go into that presentation, like me, go into the boardroom and have a method of changing that power dynamic so they aren't talked over, so that they are able to hold, command the room, hold their presence, hold their power, and speak up. And the thing is, when I was in that awful presentation way back, it wasn't about not having the confidence to give a presentation. It was that I was literally being stifled. Something was going on in my body that what I call it the subconscious submission, where I simply was unable to open my mouth. It's a real, physiological thing that happens. And when we've got all of these signals that we're in danger, and the subconscious is freaking out and saying, you are going to die if you stay here, it really sabotages us. We need a way of freeing ourselves from that, to bring the subconscious onto the page of our success, right? So this is what I've spent the last 20 years developing how to do.
And the other thing that I'm now going to say is, when we just recently worked on something, I'm selling my house, my home, and moving to another place to live, obviously. But I'm going to be able to buy something outright, and I want to buy land, and I want to create something there, something magical. And we discovered that I'm allowed to sell my house, but I'm not allowed to buy land with it. I am allowed to buy a lot of pretty dresses and shoes so that I can attract a solid provider who will then own the land. So I can sell my house, but only to buy frippery that will make me more attractive to a man who will then be able to own the land. And so we definitely had to have a little fiddle around in the quantum field up there to change that patterning belief. So, the reason I'm telling that is just, I believe in my conscious world. I'm just going to sell a house, and I'm going to, buy something else. That is so logical. Why would I not be able to do that? And yet here we are running a pattern that says, yes, I could spend £500,000 on dresses and shoes and lipstick, but not on land.
On no land, no.
And so when I find these things, it just makes me laugh so
Yeah,
much. It's a joy to find them, because when you find them, then we can get to work and get them untethered.
exactly. So, and it's not just, like but your examples are really about, opening up what's happening in your life. But equally, it's equally important to change those specific situations where women's power is just drained away, and even the most assertive, empowered woman can struggle, like this chief executive I was talking to the other day. So I realized, I worked out a way of changing that power dynamic on that really deep level. And when we do that, we're literally bringing the power back, because women are conditioned to let the power flow away, because we're just meant to be in the background and we're supporting everybody else, and etc., etc. And so I worked out how I could bring this back. And when I did, well, oh my goodness, it was absolutely life-changing. So I'm a scientist at heart, still, and it's all very well having a hypothesis, but until you've put it to the test, done the experiments in the field, you cannot say that you've actually discovered something that's of any value whatsoever. So I was I've been invited, as a successful entrepreneur as I am now, to attend a workshop down in London. But this is out of my comfort zone. There were people from, I don't know, loads of people from all kinds of real world situations. And my immediate response was, oh no, I must find an excuse not to go. I thought, no, of course you can do this. All you need to do is just bring the power in. So down I went, and I was walking around, I think it was Russell Square in London, and I pulled in all the power into my body, and it was holding it. And I felt just a shift, the best way. I felt an absolute shift. I went from anxious, I need an excuse, or, oh my God, I'm going to sit there playing with my coffee spoon, trying to be invisible at the corner, to, of course I can do this. So in I go. And I confess I had a little bit of a wobble, so I pulled it in again. But then something absolutely amazing happened. I was in that workshop and I was participating, I was speaking up, contributing in the discussion. People were listening to me. My energy was different. I was commanding the room when I spoke, is the best way to describe it. And that was something that had never happened to me in my whole life before. Decades of life before, it had never happened. And there was part of my brain that was kind of on the sideline saying, oh my God, this is phenomenal, because you are, for the first time ever, I was actually free to be myself. I wasn't having to push through the anxiety. I wasn't having to try and fake something to make it. That just wasn't there. It was simply, I was myself, being myself, speaking up, and people were taking notice, and it felt safe doing so. And it absolutely blew me away. And at the break, a bit of networking, again, another oh my God situation. And lots of women struggle with this. And again, I pulled in the power. I introduced myself to a group of about 6 people who were already speaking, and they just all turned, started talking to me. And again, they just gave me the attention. I held the space beautifully, and I was simply being myself, feeling safe, speaking up, giving my opinions. And people even commented on how confident I was compared to how they felt. And I had this big smile, because if you knew how I used to be, brilliant, silent, hiding, literally, that was how I used to be. And to go from that to this, and here's the thing, I thought for so many years there was something wrong with my character. I was intrinsically flawed, because I wasn't the breezy extrovert. I didn't have the big personality on the stage. That was never me. I was sensitive, feminine, shy type. That's who I was. I thought it's impossible for me to be me and function out in the world of achieving, an achieving career, whatever that might be, because there's something fundamentally wrong with me. But there wasn't. What happened? Well, the problem was I didn't have my power because of all of that conditioning and the subconscious doing it's you're in danger thing. And when I corrected that, everything changed. And I could be me, being out in the world, being confident, speaking up, which is absolutely huge, feeling safe doing so. And when I left that meeting, I was literally walking on air. And I remember sort of floating down the road thinking, this is something that every woman needs to know. And that was when I knew I absolutely had to write the book to get the knowledge out there that would help people.
The thing is maybe you could have been confident in a meeting just by accident, but or because they were the nice people. Maybe it was because you were comfortable. But this was a tangible, measurable thing, wasn't it? You knew you had used this technique of yours, and it had literally changed. And you could feel the shift. Totally. And then the evidence was just in the experience right there and then.
Exactly. And, and then, of course, I started teaching it to other women, and they've all they've had the same experience. I was talking to one of my long-term clients the other day, and she said, Anne, it's changed everything. I go into a meeting now, and I just pull my power back from everybody in the room, and I just keep doing it. And the dynamic of me with those people is different.
Yeah, it's measurable, fantastic. Tangible, and it feels good.
And I love the key situations that can either, catapult you up or can totally undermine you and drag you down.
I love when you were talking about this light came on your forehead and your whole face shone. It just seemed like, well, there you go. You see, but it only came when you started talking about this thing. It's power and pulling it back. Anyway, you are the author of Pull Back Your Power.
I am indeed, yes.
And you are one of our world-class speakers on our festival, and I cannot wait to bring you to that. And I really want people to come and hear your story and then choose to take a half-hour workshop with you or learn from you or so I am delighted to have you at the workshop because we actually need equality in this world for it to rebalance, so to speak. But individually, for every woman to be liberated in this way, I felt it. It's extraordinary. And of course, you're out now. I mean, every time I speak to you, you're on some other podcast or summit.
I do appear to be quite busy, yes.
Yes. And yet, still the sensitive, caring, very non-judgmental. This is still the core of you. You're just Absolutely. Confident. And that's why imposter syndrome, anxiety, lack of confidence is a measure of how far you have come. Right. So if there was one takeaway that you wanted everyone to go with, having listened to this conversation, what would it be?
Well, you've really nailed it there. When you feel those things, when you're in that situation where you've done something and it's fine, but it doesn't feel good enough, or you haven't been able to speak up in the meeting, or people did talk over you, and your automatic response would have been, "There's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I must push harder." That's when I want you to stop and say, "Right, this isn't the case at all. I know about that subconscious beast. I know my subconscious is dragging me back into the patriarchal past because it doesn't know any different. But because it's doing that, and because it's pulling me and I'm feeling all these things, it means that I am absolutely amazing because I've overcome so much to get as far as I have." So the more you feel those things, instead of taking it inside and using it for self-criticism and to undermine yourself, use it to say, "My goodness, I am absolutely awesome. You are, and every single other woman is who is fighting against this every single day."
And the other thing that I want people to know is, because you think that, okay, well, now that I know this, cool, but we actually now need to be active, but we now know what to do. And I said to you, "Oh, we do this, we're stronger together or something." And you said to me, no, we don't, we actually need help with this.
Right. Just knowing what's going on, it does help because you have that awareness and you can stop blaming yourself. But as long as the subconscious has that programming and has that knee-jerk response of giving your power away and putting you into fight or flight, you will continue to be undermined. It will ramp the stress up. Those symptoms will get worse and worse and worse, just like they did for me. You know, sometimes some people, it might go into your relationships. It might mean you lose your career. You just can't cope with the toxic environment anymore, or it might go into your health, or all of it. You know, but it isn't going to go by itself. You need to get in there and reprogram what's going on in the subconscious and train your energy to do something else, so that you go into that meeting and having prepared, having taken the action, all the negative messages you're getting aren't going to pull the rug out from under you, aren't going to trigger that submission. So if I were back in that terrible presentation, I would be pulling, I'd be pulling the power. I'd have changed the conditioning. And so I would have been able to say, excuse me, do you mind? I'm speaking. Would you mind waiting?
God,
And
that terrified me just listening to you say it now.
Exactly. You can't do it by yourself. Awareness is the first step, but to really free ourselves, because the world isn't going to change as much as we'd like anytime soon, we need to have the tools and the expertise to really get in there and make those changes so we aren't undermined. So we have tamed the beast, is how I call it in my book. So we can, go out and achieve without being undermined, without fighting against that every single day.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that you're doing this. And of course, we can't wait for the world to change. We're the agents of change in it. That's the way it is. So thank you so much for this, for trailering your amazing story that's going to be at the festival and the work that you do. And before the festival, I urge everyone to go out and buy Pull Back the Power by Dr. Anne Whitehouse, because there it is. Because just reading it will illuminate you, and you'll be like, oh, it's not me. In fact, I'm amazing. And so thank you, and we will see you all on the other side.
My pleasure.